Everyone wants to be great. Everyone says they want to rise to the top, to lead the field, to be the best. But most people never do. Not because they're not capable, but because they never fully commit to what greatness requires. They want the recognition, but not the responsibility. They want the results, but not the repetition. They want the title, but not the training. And so they stay stuck in the middle. Decent, average, replaceable. Becoming the best in anything is not about talent. It's about obsession. It's about consistency. It's about building habits so strong that even on your worst day, you're still outperforming most people on their best. It's about discipline that makes no excuses, standards that never lower, systems that remove the option to fall off, and belief that does not negotiate with circumstance. The best are not made in sprints. They're made in the silence, in the mornings when no one is watching, in the decisions no one celebrates, in the hours when it would be easy to quit. Greatness is not built when you're in the mood. It's built when you're not. It's forged in friction, reinforced in resistance, solidified through sacrifice. There are patterns to excellence, predictable, repeatable principles that separate the few from the many. And once you understand those principles, once you install those habits, once you anchor your identity to something unshakable, there's no limit to what you can do. The only limit is how much you're willing to give. You don't need more motivation. You don't need a better plan. You need a set of rules to live by, a set of principles that govern your daily actions, no matter how you feel. Because the person who is the best didn't get there by accident. They got there by choice. And they made that choice every day. Let's get right down to it. Because time is precious, and what's precious is usually limited. The first way to become the best at just about anything is to build your foundation in silence. The best in anything don't start loud. They start unknown. They build in the shadows, in the early mornings and late nights when no one sees them. They're not waiting for recognition. They're not performing for attention. They're too busy doing the work. Because the beginning isn't about applause. It's about identity. You don't need fans. You need discipline. If you only train when people are watching, you'll never build the habits that last. If you only work when it's convenient, you'll never be consistent enough to separate yourself. You have to become addicted to progress no one claps for. You have to fall in love with the days that feel invisible, because that's when real momentum is built. The ones who become the best aren't motivated by recognition. They're motivated by vision. They know who they're becoming, and they don't need anyone to validate that path. They don't need encouragement to keep going. Their work is the encouragement. Their discipline is the motivation. Their progress is their reward. Most people never make it out of the silent phase. They get bored. They get discouraged. They think because no one is noticing, nothing is happening. But growth doesn't care about visibility. Excellence doesn't need applause to exist. Mastery doesn't happen in front of crowds. It happens in solitude, in repetition, in the same decision made over and over and over again until it becomes your default. You want to be the best? Start working like you already are. Start training like it's already yours. Start showing up like you're already leading the field. Because the standard you train with when no one's watching is the same standard that will carry you when the pressure is on. If you can't build in silence, you won't last in the spotlight. If you can't stay consistent when it's hard, you won't survive when it gets harder. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your preparation. And if your preparation is built on discipline instead of emotion, you'll never fall below greatness. You have to become the kind of person who doesn't need reminders, who doesn't need motivation, who doesn't need a push. You just move. You just work. You just do what needs to be done. Not because it's exciting, but because it's who you are. Because excellence isn't something you chase. It's something you become. Stop waiting for people to see you. Start building something that's undeniable. Stop hoping the world will believe in you. Start acting like your work speaks louder than your words. Stop measuring your worth by attention. Start measuring it by alignment. Because when your daily actions reflect the person you're trying to become, the world won't be able to ignore you. Okay. The second way to become the best is to obsess over your fundamentals. Mastery isn't found in the fancy. It's not built in the complicated. It's born in the basics, in the simple things done with ruthless consistency, over and over, long after most people have moved on, long after it stopped being exciting, long after it became boring. You see, that's where the best are hanging out. Everyone wants to skip steps. Everyone wants the next level. Everyone's chasing strategy. But the ones who dominate, the ones who lead, who last, who become undeniable, they are obsessed with the simple things. They're not above the basics, they are built on them. You don't rise by doing extraordinary things once in a while. You rise by doing ordinary things at an extraordinary level. Every single day. You sharpen your skills until they're automatic. You drill the same pattern until your body doesn't hesitate. You don't just know what to do, you become it. Most people get stuck not because they're untalented, but because they get bored. They abandon the process that got them here. They look for shortcuts. They want novelty. They start experimenting instead of refining. They start winging it instead of executing with precision. But the best? They don't need variety to stay locked in. They need mastery. They need the same reps, the same sets, the same notes, the same drills, until they feel them in their bones, until they become instinct, until there's no hesitation, until their floor is higher than most people's ceiling. If you want to be the best, stop looking for something new. Look deeper into what you already know. Study your craft like it's sacred. Break it down, rebuild it, refine it. Study your movements. Study your decisions. Study your rhythm. Track the details. Obsess over the edge. Because excellence lives in the details. There's no such thing as too good for the basics. When it starts feeling easy, you don't move on. You go harder. You go deeper. You push the tempo. You push the precision. You push the intensity. You don't just check the box. You squeeze every drop out of the process. The best don't practice until they get it right. They practice until they can't get it wrong. Until execution becomes reflex. Until confidence is built on hours of proof, not moments of hype. Until their foundation is so strong that nothing can shake it. Not stress, not fatigue, not pressure. You can't skip your way to the top. And even if you could, you wouldn't stay there. The people who skip steps always get exposed. When things get real, when the pace increases, when the pressure hits, they break. Because their base was weak. Because they built speed before skill, flash before foundation. But if your base is solid, if your fundamentals are locked, if your habits are unshakable, you don't break. You don't panic. You don't hesitate. You just execute. And you execute better than anyone else. Not because you're more talented, but because you're more prepared. Next, the third way is simple, and it's to become unreasonably consistent. Not occasionally consistent, not when it's easy consistent, not when I feel motivated consistent, unreasonably consistent. So consistent that people start asking how you keep showing up. So consistent that your habits are no longer tied to your mood. So consistent that discipline becomes part of your personality. Because the truth is, talent will fail, emotion will fade, motivation will vanish, but consistency will keep going. Consistency will carry you through the valleys. Consistency will protect your progress when life tries to knock you off course. Most people are committed when they feel like it. They follow through when it's convenient. They train hard for a few weeks and then disappear for a few more. They journal for 2 days, then stop. They go all in for a weekend, then burn out. They start strong, but they don't last. That's not how greatness works. You don't become elite by showing up when it's sunny. You become elite by showing up in the rain, in the dark, on the days when everything in you wants to stop, on the days when no one would blame you if you skipped. That's where the separation is created. The ones who become the best aren't the ones who had the most natural ability. They're the ones who made a decision that said, no matter what, I show up. No matter how I feel, I execute. No matter the conditions, I perform. That decision, when repeated daily, becomes identity. And identity is where all your results come from. You don't need more intensity. You need more frequency. You don't need to sprint for 3 hours once a week. You need to show up for 30 minutes every day. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. You need to keep the chain going. You need to show yourself over and over again that you're someone who doesn't stop. Even if the session is short, even if the work is ugly, even if you're tired, even if it feels like you're not making progress, you still show up. Because that's what pros do. That's what leaders do. That's what the best do. Consistency is the great amplifier. It multiplies everything. Effort, intention, focus. You might not notice it day to day, but over weeks, over months, over years, it compounds. And it creates a gap that no one can cross unless they've lived with the same level of discipline. You won't see immediate results. That's why most people quit. They think their habits aren't working because they can't see what's being built. But something is being built. Every time you follow through, you're casting votes. You're stacking proof. You're reinforcing the identity of someone who keeps their word. Eventually, your baseline becomes better than most people's best because you've repeated it so many times. You've made it so automatic, so ingrained that even on your worst day, you're still in motion, still growing, still building. That's the level you need to live at. Not because you'll feel like it every day, but because your goals deserve consistency more than your comfort deserves a break. Your vision deserves habits more than your feelings deserve a pass. Next, the fourth way to become the best at anything you want. Embrace obsession. The best don't dabble. They don't kind of want it. They're not interested. They're all in, fully, deeply, unapologetically. They're not balanced. They're obsessed. And that's what it takes. Because becoming the best in anything requires an unreasonable level of commitment. A level most people won't understand. A level that looks extreme to people who are used to average. Obsession is not a flaw. It's a force. It pulls you through resistance. It keeps you locked in when others drift. It eliminates the need for motivation because you're consumed by the mission. You're not trying to squeeze it in. You're building your life around it. People will tell you to slow down, to be realistic, to take a break. And if you listen, you'll end up just like them, burnt out, uninspired, going through the motions. But if you want to lead, if you want to dominate, if you want to be the best, you don't listen to average advice. You don't lower your intensity so others can feel comfortable. You raise your standard. You raise your volume. You raise your obsession, and you live there. Not for a week. Not until the results show up. You live there as long as it takes, as long as it requires. Until your vision is so real to you that you can't shut it off. You wake up thinking about it. You go to sleep planning for it. You breathe it. You become it. You stop doing the bare minimum. You stop hoping things work out. You start doing the extra reps, staying the extra hour, asking the extra questions, reviewing the extra footage, rereading the same material, breaking it down, building it back. Not because someone told you to, but because you can't not. Obsession isn't about being perfect. It's about being possessed by the outcome, being relentlessly pulled by your potential, being unwilling to accept anything less than the highest level, not because of pressure, but because of principle. Because deep down, you know you were built for more, and now you're acting like it. Most people live distracted, scattered, split between 100 little interests. They never go deep on anything. They never commit long enough to break through. They never push past the boredom, the repetition, the hard part. So they stay surface level, and they wonder why nothing sticks. But obsession solves that. Obsession removes the noise. It simplifies your life. You stop needing to say yes to everything. You stop needing to be everywhere. You focus, you cut, you streamline. Because when something becomes your priority, everything else becomes optional. And it's not about working 20 hours a day. It's about living with alignment. It's about eliminating everything that doesn't serve the mission. It's about creating a life that reflects your vision, not just in theory, but in structure, in behavior, in habits, in intensity. You want to be great? Get obsessed. Forget balance. Find alignment. Build a schedule around your craft. Protect your time like it's sacred. Say no to things that dilute your edge. Surround yourself with people who challenge your focus, not your hunger. And when people call you intense, thank them. When they say you're obsessed, agree with them. Because the ones who change the world, who lead the field, who redefine what's possible, they're never casual. They're never lukewarm. They're never sort of committed. They're all in, fully in, unapologetically in. Not for the spotlight, but for the standard. Not for the applause, but for the purpose. Not for the image, but for the identity. And that identity is forged through obsession. Okay, here's the fifth way. Detach from the outcome and marry the process. Most people fail because they obsess over results and ignore the system. They want the outcome, but they resist the repetition. They measure every day, every effort, every step by whether or not it produced a visible win. And if it doesn't, they get discouraged. They question the process. They pull back. They look for something easier. That's why they never get momentum. Because momentum is built in the days that feel invisible. It's built in the reps that feel small. It's built in the discipline that looks like it's doing nothing. But it is. It's compounding. Quietly, slowly, powerfully. You see how that works? You don't become the best by chasing results. You become the best by mastering your craft, by showing up no matter what, by focusing on what you can control. You can't control how fast the results show up. You can't control how people respond. but you can control your inputs, your intensity, your execution. Detach from the outcome. Stop staring at the scoreboard. Stop checking your numbers every day. Stop analyzing your performance for validation. Start focusing on the process, on the ritual, on the routine. Build a system that works regardless of emotion, regardless of conditions, regardless of how you feel. Because when you build the right system, results are automatic. They don't need to be chased. They're a byproduct. They're the natural outcome of doing the right thing with relentless consistency. But that consistency only shows up when you stop making the result your idol and start making your habits your anchor. Fall in love with the repetition, with the reps that no one sees, with the hours when the work feels thankless, with the structure that looks boring from the outside but sharpens you on the inside. That's where the separation is made. That's where the best are built. Anyone can be excited about the goal. Anyone can show up when the results are fast. But can you show up when there's no applause? Can you keep going when no one notices? Can you put in the work when the scale doesn't move? The progress isn't visible, and the feedback is silent, because that's what it takes. You're not here to be excited. You're here to be excellent. And excellence is not found in hype. It's found in rhythm, in repetition, in showing up the same way on day 1000 as you did on day 1. Not because it feels good, but because it's who you are now. Your identity isn't built by results. It's built by routine. And when your routine is non-negotiable, your confidence becomes unshakable. You don't need external validation because you've already cast the vote. You've already proven who you are, one disciplined decision at a time. And that's the irony. When you stop needing results to feel worthy, they show up faster. When you stop attaching your worth to speed, you start moving smoother. When you stop obsessing over the finish line, you start running with more clarity, because now your joy is found in the work, in the process, in the commitment. Detach from the outcome. Marry the process. Stay in the work, even when it feels like nothing is happening, because something always is inside you, around you, through you. Keep building, keep moving, keep sharpening, and trust that the result will take care of itself. Next, the 6th way is a big one, and if you live by it, you'll be successful beyond belief. Here it is. Seek pressure. Most people avoid it. They dodge it. They run from anything that feels heavy. They want progress without friction. They want strength without resistance. They want success without discomfort. But pressure is not your enemy. It's your training ground. It's the only environment where growth becomes non-negotiable. You don't get better by coasting. You don't improve by being comfortable. You don't stretch your capacity when everything is easy. You stretch it when the weight is heavy, when the demand is higher than your current ability, when the task feels bigger than your confidence. That's where evolution happens. That's where identity is forged. Pressure exposes the gaps. It shows you where you're soft. It shows you what breaks when the tempo increases. It reveals the cracks in your foundation. And that's a gift, because now you can fix it. Now you can reinforce it. Now you know exactly where to focus your effort. The ones who become the best don't avoid pressure. They pursue it. They put themselves in situations where average won't cut it, where mediocrity is exposed, where their best is required. They don't fear the weight. They chase it, because they know the weight is what sharpens them. The pressure is what polishes them. You want to become elite? Get under some weight. Set a pace that demands your full attention. Put yourself in rooms where you're not the best. Take on challenges that make you doubt yourself at first, because that doubt, that tension, that stress, that's the sign that you're growing. That's the signal that you're no longer coasting. And when pressure shows up, don't flinch, don't fold, don't panic, breathe, slow down, focus, rise. The pressure is not there to break you. It's there to wake you, to show you what's possible when you stop playing safe. Most people shrink under pressure, not because they can't handle it, but because they've never trained for it. They've spent their whole lives trying to stay comfortable. So when life demands more from them, they don't know how to respond. But you're not most people. You train for this. You build for this. You live for the edge. You stop treating pressure like punishment and start treating it like preparation, like opportunity, like the final exam that proves whether or not you've done the reps. And if you've done the reps, if your habits are sharp, if your identity is stable, you don't run from pressure. You lean into it. You welcome it. You dominate it. Because pressure doesn't change who you are. It reveals it. And if you've been building with integrity, if you've been training in the dark, if you've been showing up when no one's watching, then pressure becomes your stage. It becomes the place where you perform. Not because you're lucky, not because it's easy, but because you're prepared. You become calm under fire, sharp under stress, focused under tension. And while everyone else is breaking down, you're locking in. While they're making excuses, you're making moves. While they're hesitating, you're executing. That's what separates you. That's what makes you different. Seek pressure. Not recklessly, but intentionally. Put yourself in rooms that stretch you. Take on tasks that demand your full capacity. Lead when it's uncomfortable. Execute when the stakes are high. And watch who you become in the process. Okay. Here's the seventh way. Study the game like your life depends on it. Because mastery isn't just about showing up. It's about understanding what you're stepping into. It's about knowing the rules, the players, the moves, the patterns. It's about learning the psychology, the rhythm, the gaps. You don't become the best by winging it. You become the best by becoming a student. Most people want to dominate without understanding. They want to lead without learning. They want to be respected without doing the research. But that's not how excellence works. You can't outperform what you don't understand. You can't outthink a system you haven't studied. The best are obsessive learners. They ask questions. They dissect failure. They analyze results. They don't just practice. They reflect. They don't just repeat. They refine. They don't just do the work. They study it. They look at every angle, every input, every pattern. They want to know what works and why. That's how they move with confidence. That's why they're so precise. Not because they guessed, but because they prepared. Because they trained their mind as hard as they trained their body. Because they didn't just grind, they studied. They got smarter. They saw what others missed. You need to treat your craft like a world-class athlete treats film. Review it. Break it down. Ask yourself what worked, what didn't, where did I hesitate, where did I fold, where was I reactive instead of proactive. This is how you sharpen your edge. Study the greats, but don't just admire them. Analyze them. Watch how they move, how they speak, how they think. Don't just take notes. Absorb. Deconstruct. Understand what they've mastered that you haven't, and then close the gap. Read, rewatch, reread, rehearse. Knowledge isn't power unless it's applied. So take what you learn and test it. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to fail. That's part of the study. Every miss is data. Every mistake is a masterclass if you're humble enough to learn from it. And don't just study what's comfortable. Study your blind spots. Study the skills you've avoided. Study the people who outperform you. Learn how they think. Learn what you've been unwilling to see. Because sometimes what's missing isn't effort, it's insight. You want to be the best? Then get curious. Get relentless about understanding your environment. Get obsessed with understanding your own patterns. Get intentional about where you're weak. The more you know, the less you fear. The more you understand, the faster you move. Studying the game means you're no longer surprised by the obstacles. You're ready for them. You've anticipated them. You've trained for them. You walk into situations with clarity, not confusion. With strategy, not guessing. That's how leaders move. That's how winners prepare. Every single day is a class. Every result is a teacher. Every challenge is a textbook. But only if you pay attention. Only if you reflect. Only if you're humble enough to admit you still have things to learn. Make learning your edge. Make awareness your weapon. Make understanding your advantage. Because knowledge without action is wasted. But knowledge applied with precision, that's what turns a competitor into a master. Okay. Now, the eighth way to become the best at what you do is to control your internal state before you try to control anything else. The world moves fast. Life throws chaos. Pressure piles up. People disappoint you. Plans fall apart. And if you don't learn to lead yourself through that, if you don't learn to stabilize your mindset under stress, you'll never last long enough to become the best. Most people break, not because they're not capable, but because they're emotionally undisciplined. They let frustration dictate their decisions. They let fear talk them out of progress. They let stress cloud their judgment. And the second life punches back, they fall apart. Not because they're weak, but because they never trained for resistance. You have to stop being reactive. You have to stop giving your power to every trigger, every delay, every inconvenience. Because the world isn't going to stop spinning. The pressure isn't going to stop building. But you can learn to lead through it. You can train yourself to stay grounded, composed, locked in, no matter what's happening around you. The ones who rise are not the ones who avoid chaos. They're the ones who can function inside of it. They can hold clarity while everyone else is panicking. They can stay calm while everyone else is emotional. They can think straight while others spiral. That's what separates the elite. And this doesn't happen by accident. You have to practice regulating yourself. You have to build rituals that center you. Movement, breath, silence, reflection. You have to create structure when the world is chaotic. You have to create stillness inside when things are loud outside. Because the strongest person in the room is not the loudest. It's the calmest, the most grounded, the one who isn't ruled by their triggers, the one who can feel everything and still choose how to respond. That's real power. That's leadership. It's not about pretending everything's okay. It's about knowing how to keep moving, even when it's not. It's about learning how to feel the emotion, but not become the emotion. To acknowledge the stress, but not get swallowed by it. To notice the fear, but still act in alignment with who you said you'd be. Train for it. Put yourself in pressure on purpose. Get uncomfortable on purpose. Start noticing your patterns when you're irritated. Start tracking your habits when you're anxious. Start watching how you respond when things don't go to plan. That's the data. That's the work. Most people try to control their external world without realizing they've lost control of their internal one. They try to fix their calendar, their schedule, their strategy, but their mind is scattered. Their emotions are unstable. Their identity is soft. And no matter how sharp your strategy is, if your mind breaks under pressure, you lose. So build inner strength like a muscle. Build emotional stability like a skill. Create rules for how you respond. Create structure for your mindset. Protect your mental energy like it's sacred, because it is. You don't get time back. You don't get attention back. Once it's spent, it's gone. You want to be unshakable? Then lead yourself. Not once. Every day. Especially when it's hard. Especially when the old habits show up. Especially when you want to quit. You breathe. You pause. You choose who leads. Your fear or your standard. And when your internal world becomes more consistent than your external one, nothing can stop you. Not the market. Not the weather. Not opinions. Not failure. You keep showing up. You keep making clear decisions. You keep moving forward. Because now your outcomes aren't built on emotion. They're built on structure. Next. The 9th way to become the best at just about anything. Here it is. Eliminate plan B. Burn the backup bridge. Stop giving yourself the option to retreat. Because every time you leave a back door open, part of you walks through it. Every time you say, we'll see what happens is nothing. Half commitment builds half results, and half results never lead to greatness. The best in anything didn't make a soft promise to themselves. They made a vow, a full-body decision, a line in the sand kind of commitment that said, this is who I am now. There is no going back. And that decision, that moment of mental no return, is what gave their discipline teeth. You can't become the best while still leaving options open for average. You can't step fully into the future while keeping a foot in the past. You can't build something that lasts while still entertaining the idea of giving up when it gets hard. Most people don't need more talent. They need more commitment. Not, I'll try. Not, I'll give it a shot. Not, I'll do my best. Real commitment. No escape clause. No exit ramp. Just one direction. Forward. That's what creates pressure. That's what creates urgency. That's what forces evolution. Because when you truly commit, when you take quitting off the table, your brain stops negotiating. Your excuses lose their power. Your energy stops getting wasted on what if it doesn't work, and gets redirected toward how do I make this work no matter what? You start looking for solutions instead of exits. You stop entertaining doubt and start building clarity. You stop feeling stuck because you no longer have one foot in and one foot out. You're all in, fully, finally. And that's the level of commitment greatness demands. The people who break through aren't always the most gifted, but they are the most committed. They're the ones who don't flinch when things fall apart. They're the ones who double down when everyone else is scaling back. They're the ones who keep showing up after the crowd has gone home. You want to build something legendary? Then burn the backup plan. Stop talking about what you'll do if it doesn't work out. Stop preparing for failure. Start preparing for the win. Start moving like it's already done. Start thinking like someone who refuses to live beneath their potential. And when it gets hard, and it will, you remind yourself why you started. You remind yourself that there's no other way, that you've already decided, that turning back isn't an option because there's nothing for you back there. That version of you is gone. This is what people don't understand about high performers. It's not just their routines, it's not just their standards. It's the fact that they've decided fully, deeply, that failure might happen, but quitting won't. They've made peace with discomfort, they've made peace with pressure, but they will not make peace with regret. You want to unlock the next level? Make it your only option. Stop hedging. Stop preparing for the fall. Stop trying to be safe while chasing something great. Greatness isn't safe. It's not predictable. It's not clean. But it's worth it. So you draw the line. You remove the backup plan. You remove the language that weakens you. No more maybe. No more someday. No more I'll try. You decide. And once you do, you move like someone who has already won. You show up like it's already yours. You execute like you've burned the boat. Here's the 10th way. Build your name on character, not convenience. Because when you strip everything else away, the hype, titles, the followers, the numbers, what's left is your name. What do people say about you when you're not in the room? What do they remember when your voice isn't there? What do you leave behind when you walk away? That's your legacy. And legacy is built on character. Being the best isn't just about output. It's not just about skill. It's about how you move, how you treat people, how you lead when it's inconvenient, how you carry your integrity when no one is watching. Because talent might get you in the door, but character is what keeps you there. Most people want greatness until it requires humility, until it requires patience, until it requires telling the truth when it's easier to lie, owning your mistakes when it's easier to blame, staying silent when your ego wants to react. But those are the moments that matter. Those are the tests that reveal what you're really made of. Your reputation isn't built when everything is working. It's built when the pressure hits, when things break, when it would be easy to cut corners and walk away and no one would know, but you would. That's what defines you. That's what echoes after the results are forgotten. You want to become the best? Start by becoming someone you trust with your own future. Someone who does the right thing, especially when it's costly. Someone who honors their word, even when it's inconvenient. Someone who walks with humility, even when they're winning. This isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. Do your actions match your values? Does your behavior match your principles? Does your leadership match your standard? If not, adjust. Don't excuse it. Don't hide from it. Adjust. Because the longer you tolerate inconsistency in your character, the harder it becomes to trust your own power. You don't need to pretend. You don't need to impress. You don't need to sell a version of yourself that doesn't exist. You just need to live in alignment. Because when your internal world and external world match, your energy multiplies, your confidence grows, your leadership becomes magnetic. And people feel that. They may not know exactly what it is, but they feel it. They follow it. They trust it. Because they can sense when something is real. And in a world addicted to shortcuts, addicted to noise, addicted to artificial everything, real becomes rare. Real becomes power. Real becomes unstoppable. So protect your name. Build it like it matters, because it does. Your reputation is your shadow. It moves with you. It lives longer than you. It becomes the proof that you were here and that you stood for something. And when you're the best at what you do, but even more, when you're someone others can count on, you're different. You're not just a performer, you're a pillar. Do the work, build the skill, raise the standard, but never sacrifice your character to get there. Because if you build it wrong, you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. But if you build it right, no one can take it from you. Becoming the best in anything is not a mystery. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's a decision followed by discipline, enforced by structure, and fueled by identity. It's not for the interested. It's not for the sometimes committed. It's for the ones who made up their minds a long time ago and haven't looked back since. You've seen the map, you've heard the rules. Build in silence. Master your fundamentals. Be unreasonably consistent. Get obsessed. Marry the process. Seek pressure. Study the game. Control your inner world. Burn the backup plan. Lead with character. 10 ways, 10 anchors, 10 laws of excellence. But none of them matter if you don't move. If you don't take the standard from your head and wire it into your habits. If you don't stop performing for comfort and start performing for your calling. If you don't stop thinking about how to be the best and start acting like it. You don't rise to the top by thinking bigger. You rise by living sharper, by removing the things that drain you, by eliminating the excuses that keep you average, by becoming the kind of person whose behavior is louder than their dreams. This is not about pace. It's about principle. You don't have to rush. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to post your progress. You just have to commit. Deeply, quietly, fully. Commit to the system. Commit to the standard. Commit to the days that feel small and repetitive and unseen. Because that's where greatness grows. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You don't need someone to tap you on the shoulder and tell you it's your time. It's your time the second you say it is. It's your time the second you stop waiting. The second you stop doubting. The second you stop living like the best is reserved for someone else. It's not reserved. It's earned. Earned in the quiet. Earned in the pressure. Earned in the repetition. Earned in the choices that no one celebrates. Earned by the one who shows up when it's hard and stays when it's boring. So choose it, not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. Now choose the system. Choose the silence. Choose the standard. Choose to live like your name will mean something when you're gone. Choose to become undeniable, not for attention, but for impact.